Rand Paul just mentioned there's one little fact about Trump surveillance which should be investigated. Now, during the hearings with Comey and Rogers, they said many different things, and a lot of the individuals were reading the newspaper articles showing that this is the proof they have. But when you really look at the entire situation, they really had no investigation proof whatsoever. And this is why the entire hacking of the election system went down the tubes. And in the case of the wiretapping, which again is not someone coming in and clipping wires to a phone and listening in. This is broad surveillance. There's many different ways to surveil individuals. I mean, think about it. Everything's wireless today. You really don't need to go in and actually hook something up. Rand Paul was out there, and he mentioned something very interesting. Well, we know that Flynn, he was under surveillance because they took his recordings, they unmasked his identity, and they leaked it out to the press. Now, since he was part of Trump's campaign, it would seem that he was under surveillance, because how did they get this information? So if he was under surveillance, the Trump administration was under surveillance. And when you look at it from that perspective, he's absolutely right. Here's the clip on what Rand Paul said.
Real quickly, sir, as you know, today James Comey was up on Capitol Hill echoing what others have said in and outside your party, that there's no evidence that he could say of the president's phones being tapped by his predecessor.
Well, you know what's funny about that? Everybody admits that somebody spied on Mike Flynn, and he was part of the Trump campaign. So it sounds like what the president said has already been proven to be true. Somebody listened to Mike Flynn's conversation and revealed it to the press, which is a felony. And you don't do that unless somehow you eavesdropped on his phone conversation. The media has been kind of confused on this. They think there has to be an old-fashioned bug placed on a wire. If you haven't looked lately, most of our cell phones don't have wires. So wiretapping is a broad term for surveillance. Somebody did surveil, somebody spied on Mike Flynn and then illegally released that conversation.
Not on Mike Flynn, but do you think that someone went to the extra level, including a former president, to rope in Donald Trump?
I don't think it's really that important whether or not was it specifically Donald Trump versus his campaign. I think most of the accusations have been that they had surveillance on the Trump campaign at large. And I think the fact that nobody's denying that they did release somebody from the campaign, Mike Flynn, they did release his conversations, that the spying actually occurred. So it's funny that we're arguing this point when in reality, I think most
Senator,
people have admitted it.
It's a difference between, you're quite right to point out the Michael Flynn situation, but Donald Trump was saying that it was Barack Obama who led that effort to tap his phones at the Trump Tower.
Right. I think there's a lot of imprecision in the language when you look at a tweet, but I think wiretapping probably to Donald Trump meant spying, and I think Donald Trump or the campaign also probably meant Mike Flynn. So I think really we're arguing circles around something that most people are admitting that somebody was spying on the Trump campaign, and that actually Mike Flynn lost his job because of an illegal felony in which somebody released the results of spying on the Trump campaign.
And as you can see, the Trump administration, from this, it's completely obvious that he was under surveillance. Now, we have those individuals that have the capability of unmasking the identity of these individuals. And Comey knows this is completely against the law. He knows this is a crime. He knows these individuals should go to prison. This is why they had this law, to stop this type of thing. But we can see right now, he's not pursuing that whatsoever. And from all of this, we can see that, the Trump administration was under surveillance, because how in the world did they get this information? And if they were surveilling Flynn, it's not too far of a stretch to say that they were surveilling others in the administration, and they just couldn't find anything to use against him. Because if there was a conversation with Russia, just like with Flynn, they would have used this to the extreme to remove Trump. That is a fact. Since they couldn't find anything, all that surveillance, everything that they looked at, all the information, there was no reason to release any of it because there was no proof of him colluding with Russia. Now, you can hear more of all of this in the full report, which is on the X22 Report YouTube channel. And those reports are Monday through Friday, one on Sunday, and they're between 6 and 7 Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to listen to incredible interviews, you can go to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, where you can hear interviews with Cliff High, you can hear interviews with David Morgan, you can hear interviews with Michael Snyder, you can hear interviews with David Stockman, Jim Rickards. So head on over to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, and you can hear all the interviews there.